Welcome to another edition of As the Crow Flies Hiking. Today, I'm going to make the case for choosing the Altra Olympus as your backpacking shoe. I want to give you 10 reasons why the Altra Olympus is a great backpacking shoe. Let's talk about it. I've been hiking now with the Altra Olympus of 3 different versions. I've had the 3.0s, the 3.5s, and now the 4.0s. The Altra 4.0s. I've been waiting to do a review or discussion about the Altra Olympus 4.0s for a while. The problem is I had to save to purchase these things. They are a little pricey, but I want to give you 10 different reasons why I think the Altra Olympus is one of the best backpacking shoes on the market. I started with the Altra 3.0s. It was an absolute change for me, going from a non-zero drop shoe with an arc down from the heel to the toe to a zero drop shoe. I had some reservations because I wasn't sure about the drop, but what initially drew me to the Altra Olympus was that wide toe box. That wide toe box created a new version of me for hiking because I now could hike longer, I could hike without blisters, and it just felt more comfortable. The 4.0 has a 33 millimeter stack height, and that creates a lot of comfort in the shoe. So my initial thoughts on the 3.0 were, this is great. It is so comfortable. I've never been able to hike that long in a shoe throughout the day without feeling those effects of fatigue and foot pain and all those things that go along with hiking long distances. I want to say I have over 600 miles or so on the 3.0s. Hiked with them for a year and a half, probably hiked with them longer than I should have, but the comfort was absolutely phenomenal. The only issues that I had with the 3.0s were what everybody has, and that is this toe box. As you can see, I super glued the toe box, but one of my problems were in gluing it was I simply clamped down the toe box with the super glue, which created a little indentation there, and it was hard to hike even further with these shoes because the indentation kind of pushed against my toe. So number one, my first case for the Altra Olympus is the comfort. These things are absolutely comfortable. They are amazing. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the durability. Now, a lot of people would say, well, these Altras don't have a lot of durability because I have these Keens or I have other brands, Merrells or other things that are waterproof and they have a stronger sole, they have stronger traction, and they're made of more durable materials. But let's talk about what they are. These shoes were made for trail running. So when you talk about a runner who runs long distances, you're really essentially talking about somebody who's running all day long and is looking for the lightest shoe out there with good traction that will create a comfortable running for that person on the trail. After a certain miles with the shoe, that shoe is degraded and it's time to move on. That's a lot quicker than somebody who's hiking and doesn't have the pounding on the ground that a runner does. So a hiker can hike longer in shoes with the tread than maybe, or the stack, than a runner can on the trail. You want the most comfort, you want the durability, you want the traction, and the durability of these Altras is enough for me. This is the 3.5 shoe. I've hiked in these for a long time now. I moved from the 3.0s to the 3.5s. As you can see, the traction is pretty much gone now. There's a little bit on the front, on the toe, a little bit on the back, but the middle is completely gone. And because of that, it was time for me to move on. The mesh essentially gave out on me. But because the mesh is so light, then you're going to have some issues of durability related to the mesh because they're trying to create the lightest shoe that they can with the durability and with the traction to keep you on the trail as long as it possibly can. After a while, yes, the stack and the comfort gave way a little bit, but I still hike in the 3.5s. you know, for day hikes and things, but it was time to move on. These shoes had reached their end, and as always, the toe box kind of came off. The third thing I'd like to talk about with the Altra Olympus is the zero drop. Now, I'm not an expert on zero drop. That's just something that you will have to look at other videos, but essentially there is no drop between the heel and the toe. You're running on a flat surface with the shoe, which gives more responsiveness to either backpacking or running on the trail. A lot of people love the zero drop, and once they go to the zero drop, they can't go back to having that height differential between the heel and the toe. For me, I didn't really have any issues switching from the non-zero drop to the zero drop of the Olympus, but that is not the case for everybody. Shoes are absolutely a personal decision. It is probably the most personal decision you can make in a backpacking realm or a backpacking trip. Find the shoe that's right for you, go out there, try them on, go to different places, look around, talk to people, and figure out what shoe will fit you the best. Because at the end of the day, your shoes are the most important gear that you have. So the zero drop was great for me. It just created this nice responsiveness to the trail. I felt a connection to the trail that I didn't have. It actually worked for me. Number 4, I'd like to talk about the lightness of the shoes, the weight. The Olympus may be, I guess, the most heavy of the Olympus line for trail runners and backpacking. I assume that the lightest would be the Kings or the Superior because they have less stack than the Olympus. So for me, you go from the King, the Superior, to the Lone Peak, which essentially is a little bit more stack, to the Temp, which is maybe a happy medium between the King and the Superiors, the Lone Peak, and the Olympus. Then the Temp has a little bit higher stack, and the Olympus 4.0s at 33 millimeters has the highest stack. When you talk about the range of shoes with the Ultras, you're looking at the King and the Superior for a more really technical type of hiking or trail running with a very low stack, to the Lone Peaks, which seem to be one of the most popular versions of the Ultras because they have that middle ground between the stack and the comfort and the lightness, and they drain very easily. Then you move on to the Temps, which may be the happy medium between the two, and then you move up to the Olympus. For me, I went straight to the Olympus. I saw the most comfortable shoes on their line, and being over 50, I wanted to find the most comfortable shoes that I could find in their range. And then if it was too comfortable, which I hadn't found, then I would move down to the Temps or the Lone Peaks. Number 5, I'd like to talk about the fact that they are not waterproof. For many years, probably 15 to 16 years of backpacking, I always had waterproof shoes. I guess I thought that that would create a reason for my shoes and my feet never to get wet, but I didn't find that to be the case. What I found is if it rains, your shoes and your feet are going to get wet. If you step over in water, the shoe, then you're going to get water in your shoe. The issue that I had was, and finally realized, is those waterproof shoes don't seem to dry. It takes a long time, usually after when I get back from a trip, for those shoes to dry. So it was a really cool transition for me to move to the Altra Olympus and essentially be able to walk through water, come out the other side, and with an hour or so, my shoes were dry. My socks may be a little wet, but my shoes were dry, and after a while, I was completely dry. And I didn't have to worry about all that moisture coming in my shoes, staying in there with the waterproof shoe and never drying and remaining heavy as I hiked. Number 6, I want to talk about the toe box. As you can see, the Altra Olympus, along with all the other trail running shoes for the Olympus brand, has a wide toe box. And for me, that is a very cool thing because I was always having blisters. I would always, in other shoes, get blisters on the end of my toe, on my heel, sometimes on my arch, but really my toes, and in between my toes and underneath my toes would create blisters because I didn't have enough room with my toes when I had that swell of my shoes after hiking all day. So with the swell, that wide toe box gave me that room that I needed, didn't create the friction of my toe at the end to create those blisters. Plus, I also added the Ingenji socks, those toe socks. For me, the Injinji toe socks and the wide toe box of the Altras, or whatever you choose, be it the Hokas or other shoes that have a wide toe box, really makes a difference for blisters. So essentially the blisters would be number 7 for my case for the Altra Olympus. That being that with the wide toe box and with these shoes, I really had a reduction, almost 0 blisters after moving to the Altra Olympus. Number 8 in my case for making a case for the Altra Olympus, they did make some changes. As you can see from the tread on the 3.0s up to the 4.0s, that's quite a difference in the tread. You can see in the 3.0s that this medium or middle area is a completely different tread. There's a lot more traction here, a more aggressive toe box and traction on the bottom. It's still the Vibram soles, which creates a good bit of rigidity that helps out with the backpacking experience. But I really like the new lugs that they have on the bottom, on the heel, and in the middle, and on the toe. I believe with these additional lugs from the 3.0s that this traction is going to be a little bit stronger and I think a little bit more durable than the 3.0s. The other change is, as you can see, the tongue is different. It's a little bit more substantial in the tongue than the 4.0s. The 4.0s does have some cushion in the tongue, but not quite as much. And I think that's the reason why when you hold these together, you can feel the 3.0s are heavier than the 4.0s. And that change, making them lighter with the mesh and the toe box, really creates a really nice additional change. As you can see, the toe box for the 3.0s and the 4.0s is different because there is a different kind of material on the front that I think is going to create this toe flap from separating quicker than it did with the 3.0s. The mesh is a little bit higher off with, and then a kind of like rubber type substance around the toe box that I think is going to create more durability. But the 4.0s, the tongue, the comfort of the soles, going to be a great addition, I think, as I move forward in the 4.0s. So the 9th reason I'll give you for why I think the Altra Olympus is one of the best backpacking shoes out there is the traction. I've kind of mentioned it also in this video, but this traction I think is absolutely aggressive and brilliant for the Altra Olympus. As they were designed for trail runners, they were designed to have tread that will grip and keep you attached to the trail with that responsiveness that you need for running and for backpacking. I think it's a great hybrid for backpacking because this tread and traction really is aggressive enough to move you on the trail, whether it's slick, rocky, whatever. It's a good traction for the trail. Is this the best traction in the shoes that Altra offers? I don't think so. I have heard through various hikers that the King and Superiors have wonderful traction. Some people I talk to would like to be able to take the tread from the Superior, the King, and attach it to the Olympus or another shoe to create their own type of hybrid of the Altra brand. The 3.5s and now the 4.0s, I just had really no issues with traction. I have noticed over time that the 3.0s and the 3.5s, obviously, as you hike longer, eventually the tread will deteriorate, and that's just part of any shoe, especially when you have those lugs like that. It's just gonna wear down over time. But I think this particular tread, this aggressive look for the trail is going to be great on the 4.0s and a great additional change. Number 10, I think the last thing I want to talk about is the Vibram insoles. I've always felt like the Vibram insoles were a great addition to any shoe that I've seen, but this particular sole and this particular traction with the Vibram insoles creates a good, it's not a rock plate, but it is enough rigidity to keep you on the trail and keep that additional pain of a foot swell and pain at the end of the day that you may get from hiking without the Vibram sole would be a game changer for me, and probably not as good, but having this Vibram sole is wonderful. And with that, when you think about it, as you look at the bottom, you see how at the back, they've created this slit down the middle. I have had issues with the soles in the 3.0s and the 3.5s as I'm on an uneven surface and I hit the ground, having a rolling of my ankles a bit. Man, that could just be weak ankles for me being an older hiker and having ankle injuries over time. But I have seen that when you put the shoe down on the trail, if you're on an uneven surface, you can have a rolling effect with the 3 or 3.5s. I think this addition here, by splitting it wider on the bottom, as you can see, is split a little bit on the 3.0s, but not near as much as the 4.0s. There is a little bit wider addition to the bottom, which will create a little bit more surface area to keep you from rolling when you hit that uneven ground. Thank you guys for watching this edition of As the Crow Flies Hiking and this review or discussion of the Altra Olympus and why I think they're probably one of the best backpacking shoes out there on the market. Appreciate y'all joining in on this. I hope this was helpful in some way. If it is, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel, maybe hit the like button and share this video with others. I will see you next time on the next edition of As the Crow Flies Hiking.